Good afternoon and welcome to Sky News Today. The Chief Medical Officer has urged anyone who's visited northern Italy and is suffering from flu-like symptoms to isolate themselves.
Well, it follows a large outbreak of the coronavirus in the country with 7 deaths from COVID-19, that's so far.
Well, 2 schools in Cheshire have closed their doors for the rest of the week after some pupils returned from ski trips in the affected areas.
The Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, told Sky News this morning he's concerned about the threat of an outbreak in the UK.
I'm pretty worried. We've got the plans in place. We've got the procedures. At the moment, the containment here is going well, but it's my job to be worried. And that's what you'd expect of a health secretary in the middle of what is a global outbreak. We're saying that those who've been in northern Italy, if they feel ill, if you've got symptoms, flu-like symptoms, then you should self-isolate, stay at home, try not to see other people. If you've been to Italy, to the areas that are being quarantined by the Italian government, then you should stay at home and self-isolate even if you don't have any symptoms.
Well, let's look at the latest numbers. Iran has confirmed 2 more deaths due to coronavirus, with Iranians being urged to remain at home. Also has reported that the minister in charge of the coronavirus in that country has also been diagnosed with it.
In Europe, new cases confirmed. In Croatia, Austria, also today. These are the latest global numbers.
Now more than 80,000 confirmed cases worldwide. The total number of people who've died from the disease is now more than 2,700.
Those of which we know about. Most of the deaths have been in mainland China, that's indisputable. At least 41 people have died elsewhere, however.
In Italy, where several towns are on lockdown, there are 232 confirmed cases. 7 people have died, and they also have found a case in Sicily.
15 people have died in Iran. These numbers are disputed, not least by Iranian MPs who say that, for instance, 50 people have died in the holy city of Qom alone. Neighbouring countries, Turkey, Iraq, Afghanistan, have closed their borders with Iran after confirming their first cases too.
And there are almost 1,000 people in South Korea confirmed to have the disease. 10 people have died there.
Well, hundreds of tourists have been quarantined at a hotel in Tenerife on the Canary Islands.
Guests at the H10 Costa Adeje Palace were given this note advising them to stay in their rooms. It came after an Italian doctor staying there tested positive for the coronavirus. Well, Sky's Enda Brady joins us now from our central London studio. Lots of different strands to this story, Enda. Lots of people will be concerned for all sorts of reasons. People with children who've possibly come back from skiing trips and people who are still on holiday, plus people booking in advance.
Yes, this is developing a pace now. What we know about the situation in Tenerife is that Spain now has its confirmed 3rd case of the coronavirus. They're all tourists. The first was a British man in Mallorca. The second was a German tourist in the Canary island of La Gomera, which is just off Tenerife. And the third now is this Italian doctor who we understand is from Lombardy. So he has been staying for the past 6 days of a 7-day holiday at the Costa Adeje Palace Hotel, which is in Adeje in southern Tenerife. He was there with his wife, and Spanish media are reporting that a woman accompanied him to a local private medical clinic yesterday near Adeje. He was complaining of fever for several days, and he is now being treated, having tested positive for the coronavirus. And the woman who accompanied him to hospital is under medical surveillance. So Spain now has 3 confirmed cases. That hotel is in lockdown. We've seen that note that was pushed through people's doors staying at the hotel. And remember, a lot of people were trying to get back from Tenerife and they couldn't because of those sandstorms that blew in from the Sahara. So this is just compounding their misery, really, trying to get home and now effectively in quarantine while the hotel locks down. And the note that was pushed through people's doors was in English, Spanish, French, German and Italian. So you can imagine the intercontinental mix of tourists, as if you like, at this hotel. And it said quite simply, "Dear guests, we regret to inform you for health reasons the hotel has been closed down," and just urging people to stay in their rooms. And we've seen pictures emerging now of Spanish police at both the entry and exit points of the hotel. So that situation's ongoing in Adeje in Tenerife. Elsewhere, 2 cases confirmed today in Austria, 1 in Croatia. The Austrian cases, they are interesting because they're in the Tyrol region. Of course, that borders onto northern Italy, where much of the problems in Italy are centred in the Lombardy province. And that is, of course, where the doctor is from who has tested positive in the Canary Islands. So Italy, the very latest figures we have now, 284 confirmed cases in Italy. There are 20 regions in Italy. 8 of them now have cases of the coronavirus to deal with.
And thanks very much. Just to give you a bit of information about what's happening in schools in the northwest, Cheshire East Council is saying that 2 schools, Brine Leeds School and Sandbach High School, have sent home staff and pupils who've returned from trips to Italy as a precautionary measure, although they say it should be noted that the trips did not visit an area specified as a controlled area by the Italian government. There are no cases of COVID-19 identified in Cheshire East. While by Cransey School, not a million miles away, they have closed the school for the rest of the week because they also had a skiing trip to the Lombardy area, and they were concerned about the condition of a couple of the children who came back. So that school is going to remain closed for the rest of the week while they put in place a deep clean.
Oman just notifying of 2 more cases of coronavirus in that part of the Middle East. The Italian Prime Minister has also been talking about this, saying he's confident the measures that they put in place will be enough. Police have been putting on roadblocks to spread the spread of coronavirus. It's claimed 7 lives so far in Italy. Let's turn to our Europe correspondent, Adam Parsons, who joins us from Milan. Adam, where you are in Milan, I mean, it tells its own story. If it's visibly quieter, and this is Milan. This is the fashion capital of Europe. It's one of the great industrial centres. This is an economy that's not had, a lot of luck in recent years. And you begin to see why the people who look hard at these things in a very calculating way decided yesterday that our stock markets are overvalued. You see why, don't you?
Yeah, and behind me is one of the great buildings in Italy. It's Il Duomo, the cathedral in the heart of Milan, and it really sums up this building. 2 things that are very important to Italian people. One is the Catholic Church, and the second thing is tourism to this nation. This cathedral has about 6 million visitors, tourists, a year, and at the moment Il Duomo has closed its doors, along with other big buildings here, museums, La Scala Opera House, and they don't know when it's going to reopen. Officials here told us that they were hoping the doors would be open on Sunday, but they didn't know why. Now, they haven't actually said it's for coronavirus. We know it is, but they've given us every indication by pointing to masks and saying there's a reason why people are wearing masks. So that is a symbol, I think, of how this nation and this region in particular is struggling to cope with what has happened and the speed and ferocity of the spread of this virus. At the end of last week, there were only just a few cases of coronavirus in Italy, about 3 of them. Now, well, as Ender's just been saying, we're up to about 280, and of course the expectation is that that is going to considerably grow, not least because you are seeing cases spread around the nation. It's not just in Lombardy. This remains the epicenter, but you are seeing them passing around Italy, and indeed those cases that have been announced today in Austria are people who have come from Lombardy. So it may well be we have that dispersal as well. Now we have those towns, a small number of them, about 10, comprising about 50,000 residents. Those are completely locked down. You can't get in or out of those. But we are now seeing more incidents and more of a curfew being suggested, in some places imposed on restaurants and bars, and certainly into the evening, into the nightlife. Nightclubs and bars are not opening at the moment. The evening economy has shut down in order to try to stop big crowds coming together. Now, you mentioned the economic impact of this. That will hit Italy, which has struggled in recent years, and that will exacerbate, I think, political tensions between Italy and the European Union. That is for the future. For the moment, the government and the people here are worrying simply about the way that coronavirus has grabbed this region and whether it may grab the country.
Adam, thanks very much.
A damning report into child sexual abuse linked to Westminster has found political institutions failed in their response for years.
This is the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse in England and Wales. It was set up in 2014. It came amid claims of an establishment cover-up following allegations of child sexual abuse and exploitation involving people of public prominence associated with Westminster in the 1980s.
There were 15 investigations, one of which was focused on Westminster. Public hearings were held last March to investigate allegations of child sexual abuse committed by persons of public prominence associated with Westminster.
Evidence of conspiracy, cover-up or interference, a culture of tolerance towards those suspected of child sexual abuse within the highest levels of government.